Part 5. Saving.
Well, a penny saved is a penny earned, right? Well, not exactly. A penny saved can grow to have a value greater than a penny when invested properly. Of course, one thing's for sure, a penny spent is a penny spent. Let's talk about saving and how we can grow our fortunes through the power of compounding.
In 1996, Americans saved only about 5% of their disposable personal income. Compare this to 11.6% per household for the United Kingdom and Germany, 12.8% for France, and 11.9% for Japan.
That's quite a startling statistic. Now check this out.
Let's go back in time for a moment. Suppose this is 1925 and you're 5 years old and your grandmother gives you a crisp new $1 bill.
Now you're probably really tempted to run out and spend all your newfound wealth on triple chocolate Bunko bars. You could do that, but you wouldn't have much to show for it in a few days' time.
Now suppose you were a bit of a prodigy as a 5-year-old, and you took that dollar and invested it in a certain combination of small cap stocks, and just left it there to simmer for the next 70 years or so.
If you cash that investment in today, you'd have a grand total somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000. Not too bad, huh? Sure beats tooth decay and a bunch of old Bunko bar wrappers.
This little story teaches us some important aspects about saving money.
First off, what we save isn't just affected by what we earn. It depends on where we place our priorities. It would have been nice to have those Bunko bars, but with a little foresight, we could find a number of more profitable ways to use that money.
Second, we can also see the power of time as it relates to saving and investing. When it comes to saving money, time is our ally. Invested in a proper place, a small amount of money can grow exponentially over time if we just leave it alone.
Let's talk about that first point. Many of us may feel that we don't have any extra money to save. Our budgets are so tight each month that we can barely make ends meet. If we find ourselves in this position, we need to ask ourselves the question, what are my Bunko bars? What are the extra extravagant things that we indulge in that we could do without? What about a nice steaming cup of Super Frappa Mocha Java Latte? A few drinks with your office pals after work? That newest ultra-long, sure to lower your golf scores Steelwood driver? And so on and so on and so on. As you can see, all of these expenditures can really add up over the course of a month, even though they don't seem like much at the time. So, if you're looking to save money, you may have to bite the bullet and sacrifice some of these necessities.
This is all about balance. When you start thinking in these terms, what you're doing is beginning to balance your short-term lifestyle preferences with your long-term retirement goals. On the one hand, you can indulge in everything you want today and put nothing away for the future. Or you can play it very conservative and save every extra dollar, even going without such things as vacations and entertainment in order to save for the future.
What we're actually looking for is an appropriate balance between these two extremes that we can be comfortable with. Making these lifestyle adjustments can be difficult at first, but over time they will become more natural. And while past performance cannot guarantee future results, there are 3 axioms that we should keep in mind when creating a saving strategy. They are: Axiom 1. The power of compounding interest increases over time. Axiom 2. Starting sooner is better than starting later. And Axiom 3. Time in the market is better than timing the market. Let's look at each one in turn.
Axiom 1. The power of compounding interest.
Money has a way of growing over time if it is placed in the proper receptacles. If you place your money under your mattress, the only thing it's going to grow is mold. So let's look at what can happen to your hard-earned cash over time.
The secret to growing money is starting early and letting the magic of compounding take over. Compounding is simply letting your investment grow by adding the interest back into your principal investment. As time goes on, your principal gets larger, and therefore your interest earned also gets larger. It's an unbeatable combination for a money-saving bonanza.
To see the power of compounding, let's look at the Rickenbacker's finances. On this graph, we have the x-axis labeled as time in years and the y-axis labeled as dollars and thousands. Let's say that Ma and Pa Rickenbacker have managed to save $10,000 and want to put it into an investment vehicle to grow it over time. At year 0, they start with $10,000. If their investment return rate is 5% per year, compounded, their earnings would grow like this. In year 20, they would have $27,000. They almost tripled their initial investment.
Now let's say that the Rickenbacker's son, Jeffy, invested $10,000 he'd saved up from his paper route at the same time. But the return on his investment was 10% per year. How much difference do you think it would make after 20 years? Would Jeffy have 5% more money? Well, let's see. Over time, at 10%, Jeffy's money would grow like this, leaving him with $67,000 when all is said and done.
Why the big difference? Well, that's the power of compounding. Over time, compounding will make a big difference in our investments, even though in the short run the difference isn't that great. Notice that for the first 5 years or so, the two graphs stay pretty close together. It's only after time that compounding really kicks in and blows the lid off their investment.
So our first axiom is, the power of compounding interest increases over time.
Axiom 2. Starting sooner is better than starting later.
Easier said than done, right? Well, this axiom has a corollary that says if you can't start early, start now. So, no matter where you are in life, there's no time like the present to start saving. To illustrate this concept, let's take a look at another story.
Here are two twin brothers, Live for Today Ringo and long-term thinker Willis. These two brothers are alike in every way, except they look completely different, act completely different, and approach life in completely different ways.
Live for Today Ringo has no immediate investment strategy. His plan is to wait until he gets older and then catch up, because it's a long life, man. And who wants to limit their fun by saving for their future?
Long-term thinker Willis, on the other hand, has the opposite approach. He's decided to get an early start on saving. He starts socking away $2,000 a year at 8% interest compounded annually. He does this for 10 years and then stops. At this point, his total initial investment is $20,000. Why does he stop? Well, he's a long-term thinker. You'll see in a minute.
By this time, Ringo is getting a little worried about his own future, so he decides to get started with his savings. His plan is also to sock away $2,000 a year, but just to one-up Willis, he is going to do it for 20 years, making a total initial investment of $40,000.
Okay, so at the end of 30 years, who is going to be in better financial shape? Let's run the numbers and look at a chart.
This bar graph represents the amount of money Ringo and Willis have each year over the 30-year period that this story takes place. The year is on the horizontal axis, and the amount of money in thousands is on the vertical axis. First, let's bring in Ringo's numbers. Notice that he starts in year 10 of our 30-year time frame. At the end, he has a grand total right around $99,000. Not too bad for a late bloomer.
Now let's drop in Willis's numbers. Remember, he started in year 1, invested for only 10 years, and let his investment grow without adding money for the next 20 years. By year 10, he was so far ahead of Ringo that Ringo could never catch up. Willis's final total is around $146,000, almost 50% more than Ringo, with exactly 50% less money invested. Now we know who had the better saving strategy.
Ringo and Willis have taught us a lesson about the concept of getting an early start. Notice that time was more important than the amount of money invested. Ringo eventually invested more money than Willis, but Willis still ended up with more in the long run.
Now, don't write Ringo off too quickly, though. He's made a good return on his investment, and he's much better off than if he hadn't done anything.
So wherever you are in life, it's to your advantage to start saving. And if you've already started saving, but your financial plan requires you to save more, then start saving more.